Hello and welcome to season 3 of I Should Say That Out Loud. I'm your host, Donna Brendel. I just want to start by saying that my thoughts and my brain are all over the place. I've had the most exciting year, and I can't organize my thoughts into a plan of what to talk about today or scheduling episodes and topics. So here's what's running through my mind. My thoughts are jumping all over the place. So maybe as I talk about them, they'll start to get organized. In the past year, I've written and published my first memoir. I've written the draft of my second memoir, and I started back at school, at college, and I have been reading like crazy and studying other authors. And most recently, I have taken a class on mushroom hunting. I love to hike and bike and paddleboard and do all sorts of things outside and just be in nature. And in this mushroom class, I learned some really fascinating things that I never knew about nature and networking. You may have heard of this before me, but this is a brand new concept to me. It's called mycelial network. I need my glasses on for this. So mushrooms or fungi have something called mycelium. And here's the technical definition of what happens. Fungi combine their mycelium with the tree's roots, and the fungi make it easier for the trees to get more nutrients and moisture from the soil, and then the fungi get access to sugars from the trees. So the trees benefit from the fungi, and the fungi benefit from the trees. So why do I mention the mycelial network and mushrooms and fungi and trees? So here, it's hard to explain. And that's the whole idea. That's the whole problem, is that it's hard for an autistic author, maybe any author, but it's hard for me to explain what's going on in my brain and in my body and in my world as an autistic person to help other people understand what's going on in my life, in my body, in my thought process. Even as I've written my book, Autistic Revelations, which I'm going to share with you here in a minute, it's still not the full picture. And this book is just one portion of my life as an autistic adult. That's why I'm writing 7 memoirs in a series on the different topics and areas of my life to help provide a more holistic and fully rounded picture of what it is like to be autistic in like the full scope of my life from childhood to now. But as I read other authors, as I've read other authors before my writing and since starting this process of writing and publishing my story, and as I go back and even reread things I've read before to prepare for these podcasts, I realize that the stories of other autistic people combined with my own story help to give you a fuller picture, a more well-rounded picture than I can even give, even in 7 books of my series, which I haven't even completed yet. I've only completed the first, and it'll be a few years before the whole thing is done. So in the meantime, I really love that I can help deepen the picture and the understanding of what it is like in the mind and body and psyche and full experience of an autistic person. Hopefully, I hope that I can attain it for you. So first, I want to just read the table of contents of my book and jump over to another book. That word "jump" is key. So my book has 3 acts. Part 1 is the person I used to be, and part 2 is the journey that I took throughout the course of my life to get to part 3, the person I am now. I had a writing coach who helped me learn this 3-act process for memoir writing. Her name is Marian Roach Smith, and I did her online class, which taught me a lot, and I'm so thankful for her online coaching that she did that helped me put my thoughts into an organized system, which, as you can see, I struggle with in many different ways. I need a podcast coach now to organize my thoughts for podcasting. But anyway, so part 1 of my book is 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is Time Warp to Childhood Nature. Chapter 2 is Time Warp to Childhood Nurture. Chapter 3, The Place I Felt Noticed and Cared For. Chapter 4, The Cocoon of Adversity. There's a lot of nature in my book. And this book is about my body and how autism feels in my body, how it manifests in my body, how my body responds to people and nature in the world around me, and how I can help myself or hurt myself by how I allow my body to respond to the world around me and receive helps or reject helps from people and from nature and from all sorts of things. Part 2, Act 2 is about my head-to-toe surgeries and life lessons that I learned from my injuries, my surgeries, the procedures, pregnancies, and I didn't necessarily learn that I was autistic through these surgeries, but just the way my autistic brain receives information and processes and analyzes information. And as I became more aware of what autism is and how it manifests in me and in my body, and it helped me understand struggles of my past. It helped me understand my interests that I've always had and why I had those interests and how to get back to those passions in my life and allow those passions to benefit me and help me take better care of myself now that I'm more aware of my needs as a person in general, but also as an autistic person. Self-care is it's a big buzzword right now, but it's been greatly misunderstood and undervalued. And even as it's a big buzzword right now, it still kind of escapes a lot of people of how to do it, how to take care of ourselves. And we can't just do a program that someone else prescribes to us or talks about that benefits them, or their program that they're selling or writing about or podcasting about, because the same thing doesn't work for every person. We have to investigate and ponder on what our passions are from even going back to our childhood and what we enjoyed back then, and how we've gotten away from that, how we can get back to that, how we can incorporate those things, those passions into our daily lives now as adults and in the midst of our responsibilities and our busyness of life and family and work and school and the chaos of the world, and when there's stressors that come and go day in and day out, and have a consistent self-care practice and a consistent health consciousness for our own mental health as well as the mental health of those that we are pouring into and loving and taking care of. And the better we care for ourselves, the better we can care for others. I know that's easier to understand than it is to even translate to our own hearts for ourselves and put into practice. But the more we practice it by adding just little pieces of it day by day and growing it slowly so that it's manageable, so that it's repeatable, so that it's something that we can continue to do on an ongoing basis, then it becomes part of our life. It becomes part of who we are. It's not a to-do list or a chore. It's something that we enjoy and something that we want to do. And we make time for it. We want to make time for it. It's not like we have to make time for it. It's just something that is important to us and gives us joy and helps us give others joy. So these are the things that I learned throughout my head-to-toe surgeries over the course of my life. Whew. Part 2, Chapter 5, Eyes. Chapter 6, Wisdom Teeth. Chapter 7, Right shoulder dislocation and bicep repair. Ooh, it's still there. Chapter 8, Left shoulder port and abdominal surgery for colon cancer. Chapter 9, Pregnancy and Loss of My Child, Jeremiah. Chapter 10, Pregnancy and Birth of My Daughter, Lauren, who is now a young adult. And, so many exciting things happening. I don't want to give away her story. Chapter 11, Pregnancy and Loss of My Baby, Dorothy, in miscarriage. Chapter 12, Pregnancy and Birth of Hannah, my middle child, and she has some amazing, exciting things happening in her life as well. Chapter 13, Pregnancy and Birth of Joshua. Again, more exciting things happening in his life now. This is about my pregnancy with them, though. Chapter 14, Left Hip Repair. Chapter 15, Left Knee Repair. Chapter 16, Ingrown Toenail Repair. Might sound minor, but that hurt. And Pinky Toe Bone Spur. Chapter 17, Hip Replacement. Going back up the body now. And since then, I could add another chapter. I had root canal 2 weeks ago. Okay. So that brings me to part 3, Act 3, who I am now, and what I've learned over the course of my lifetime and these head-to-toe surgeries. Chapter 18, Putting Myself First, like I've been talking about. Chapter 19, Wisdom to Break Free. That was a difficult chapter, difficult time in my life. Lots of difficult times of my life. But joy now. I have joy now, thankfully. We have to do hard things sometimes a lot of the times to have joy, and that's okay. Pruning. We have to prune. Another nature thing, another nature concept is pruning. Chapter 20, Return to the Lake, my passion, my biggest passion, physically and emotionally and psychologically, being by water and active with water skiing, paddleboarding. Love it. Chapter 21, Wholly Neurodiverse Me, with a W. WHOLLY, Wholly Neurodiverse Me. So that's the table of contents of my book, Autistic Revelations, Body Edition. I will be sharing more excerpts from this as my season goes by. But today I want to jump to another book by another author called The Reason I Jump. You may have heard about this. It's been talked about in a lot of places for a long time. And every time I hear it, I'm like, I have that book. And I always think to myself, I need to read that book. And then as I was looking through it again today, I realized I have read this book. It's so beautiful. And it's written by a 13-year-old autistic boy. His name is, I don't know how to pronounce it, Naoki Higashida. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But each page or two is his answer to a question about how he functions in the world as an autistic boy. And it's just beautiful. So many references to nature, as you can see by the cover with the butterflies, and a lot of talk about his body and physical movement. The reason I jump is one of the questions. Why do you jump? So I've highlighted a bunch of pages, and I want to talk about several of them. And the reason, what makes me so excited about sharing other authors and inviting other authors as guests on my podcast this season is because of that phenomenon in nature, the mycelial network, the relationship between the fungi and the trees. I feel like we have a similar kind of network as humans. Obviously, we have social networks, we have business networks, we have family networks, we have community networks. But I think it goes deeper than that, than we even realize. That there's this unconscious network of understanding and learning that happens between people, even around the world. I haven't even met this person, but just reading his story, I understand myself better. I understand my book and my writing better. And together, I can help you understand autism and yourself and your family members and your loved ones better when I put these two ideas and stories and thoughts from these two different people together, myself and this 13-year-old boy when he wrote it. He's older now, but I'm so excited by that. You have no idea. He writes so beautifully and says things that I've felt as well, but I haven't been able to put words to. So question 26 out of his book on page 49 says, the question is, why do you write letters in the air? In the beginning of my first memoir, Body Edition, I talk about how I used to draw spirals in the air when I was going to sleep, trying to fall asleep. I'd be lying in bed, drawing these imaginary spirals in the air. And then as in my brain, in my invisible field of vision, I would cross over the line. Like, oh, darn, I got to start over. It's not perfect. Oh, I got to start over. And I'd get even almost to the end. Oh, I could never perfect the spiral that I would draw in the air, but it, in some way, somehow it gave me peace to just try to draw the perfect spiral in the air. And I did that regularly, almost every night for a long time. So Naoki's answer to the question, why do you write letters in the air? He says, I'm writing to confirm what I want to remember. As I write, I'm recalling what I've seen, not as scenes, but as letters, signs, and symbols. So a spiral is a symbol. Letters, signs, and symbols are my closest allies because they never change. They just stay as they are, fixed in my memory. And so it makes me wonder, is what was fixed in my memory the spiral, the perfect spiral? It had to be perfect. Is perfection what was fixed in my memory rather than the spiral itself? Who knows? And whenever we're lonely or happy, in the same way that you might half hum a song to yourself, we summon up our letters. When I'm writing them out, I can forget everything else. I'm not alone when I'm with letters. Letters and symbols are much easier for us to grasp than spoken words, and we can be with them whenever we want. So as I was trying to make this perfect spiral, maybe I was just trying to forget something from the day or everything from the day so that my mind could shut down and I could go to sleep. Maybe it was just a familiar thing that made me feel comfortable as I was lying there trying to go to sleep. It's so validating to hear that someone else has not only done this, but can write about it and share the beauty of why we do it. And I feel fed by that. And I hope you feel fed by that. He has two questions that are written separately, question 25 and question 46. So they're quite a ways apart in the book, but I found that they relate to each other very strongly. So question 25, that's the title of the book. What's the reason you jump? And then I'm going to go to question 26 and talk about how I feel that they're very related. So he says, when I'm jumping, it's as if my feelings are going upward to the sky. Really, my urge to be swallowed up by the sky is enough to make my heart quiver. When I'm jumping, I can feel my body parts really well, too. My bounding legs and my clapping hands, and that makes me feel so, so good. That's one reason I jump. And recently I've noticed another reason. People with autism react physically. Yes, physically to feelings of happiness and sadness. So when something happens that affects me emotionally, my body seizes up as if struck by lightning. I totally recognize that feeling, and I'm so glad that he was able to put that into words. So beautiful. So he puts in quotes, seizing up, the phrase seizing up in quotes. Seizing up doesn't mean that my muscles literally get stiff and immobile. Rather, it means that I'm not free to move the way I want. So by jumping up and down, it's as if I'm shaking loose the ropes that are tying up my body. When I jump, I feel lighter. And I think the reason my body is drawn skyward is that the motion makes me want to change into a bird and fly off to some faraway place. What a beautiful thought from a 13-year-old. I've always wanted to fly, and I've dreamt about flying a lot when I was a child. I think that's a very common thought and wish. But constrained both by ourselves and by the people around us, all we can do is tweet, tweet, flap our wings, and hop around in a cage. Ah, if only I could just flap my wings and soar away into the big blue yonder, over the hills and far away. What a beautiful thought. Beautifully written by a 13-year-old boy. So then that brings me to question 46. Do you enjoy your free time? This is so poignant. I love what he says. I just have to read the whole thing. So what do you do in your free time? Because for people with autism, free time is in fact unfree time. You can do whatever you feel like doing now, someone might tell us, but actually, it's pretty hard for us to find something we feel like doing, not just like that. If we happen to see some toys or books we're always playing with or reading, then sure, we'll pick them up. Thing is, however, that's not so much what we want to do as something we can do. Playing with familiar items is comforting because we already know what to do with them. So then, of course, people watching us assume, aha, so that's what he likes to do in his free time. What I really want to do, however, is to get stuck in some difficult book or to debate some issue or other. Me too. We are misunderstood, and we'd give anything if only we could be understood properly. Yes. People with autism would be suffering breakdowns over this all the time if we weren't holding ourselves in so tightly. And that's what I think relates back to the other question about why he jumps. Please understand what we really are and what we're going through. Again, so beautiful and poignant. When we observe, especially children who can't really process their thoughts and speak them out loud, and some autistic children are not verbal, so they're not able to speak at all, and some can speak with their tablets and devices, which is a wonderful thing. But sometimes when we're observing children and we just make assumptions based on what we're observing, we can think, yeah, like he says, that's what they like to do. But again, it might just be something that's familiar in the room at the time when they'd rather be doing something completely different. And that's why I think what I've done in raising my kids, and what I think is a great thing for all parents to do of neurotypical and autistic children, is to get kids out of the room, out of the house, out of the building, and into nature and try new things and move their bodies and experiment and experience other things, even if it's uncomfortable at first, because like he said here, it's easier for us to do things that are familiar because we struggle to do new things, and it takes us more time than a neurotypical child or person. And sometimes people around us, especially when we're children, adults around us might not give us enough time to explore a new thing that we need to wrap our brains around it and try to interact with it and understand how it works and to enjoy the process. And so we need much more time. So we need much more time to try new things and learn new things and do new things. But once we discover something new and discover that we like it, it can broaden our world and connect more neurons in our brains and connect more physical understanding and awareness within our bodies and allow us to grow and develop physically, emotionally, mentally, cognitively. And if we just allow children, autistic or not, to do what's familiar to them because it seems like it's what they enjoy or because it's easiest for us as parents and adults and caregivers and teachers, then we're holding them back from growing in all of these beautiful ways. So if we can offer up the precious commodity of time to allow children, all children, and especially autistic children who need even more time to explore the world, to explore new things, they will grow and benefit in exponential ways that are unbelievable. So thank you for doing that, for all of you who already do give that extra time that is needed. And for those of you who don't yet, give it a try and see what happens. Give it a lot of tries. Give it a lot of time over and over again with faith and trust in me and Naoki, this other author, that we are saying it works and it's beneficial. And it's not just a random idea from an intellectual about autism, but from two autistic people who say, yes, it's a beautiful, needed thing that we benefit from greatly. I will share more from Naoki's book and other episodes because there's so many beautiful nuggets and tidbits in this book. And I have many other authors to share from their books, which I will do as well throughout the course of this season, And I will also have some of them as guests on my podcast. I'm so excited. Orion Kelly will be one of them. And thank you for tuning in, for listening to my episode today. Please click all the buttons, subscribe to my podcast, like this episode, share it with your friends, comment on it, bring others into the conversation and into the community so that we can grow this mycelial network of autistic understanding, of autism awareness, and not just talking about it, but feeding off of each other. This sounds gross, but in a beautiful, natural, holistic way that nature intended for us to help each other and give to each other and receive from each other. So thank you for doing that and helping that process, helping that network grow as you click all the buttons and do all the things. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.